All right, welcome to episode 66 of Adventures in Inbetweening. Today I am talking about some effects I animated on a show called Edgar and Ellen back in 2007, 2008. There's a lot of stuff here about effects reuse and libraries. I'll get into that later on.
You guys.
If you want to eat, Miss.
Okay, so to be clear, I didn't animate any of the characters in this show. I just animated the effects, and effects is basically anything that's not a character. In this case, I'm focusing on the smoke effects that I animated. So you can see this rocket here is taking off, and so and I'll get into this later, but what I did is I animated a whole bunch of different smoke assets and cycles that could be used from the library and copied and pasted into these scenes with the characters. So the character animators would go and animate their scene, then they would go into the effects library, copy and paste some assets out of there, and sometimes recolor them and make it fit to the scene. So in a scene like this, the smoke is emerging from the puffer that Edgar's got here, and it's going to be scaling up. The animator made that choice. So I just made this cycle in one place, the same size. And so the animator said, yeah, we needed to go smaller to bigger. And now we're going to a close-up of the cycle, and now they're choosing a different smoke asset that the cycle is going to animate into so the smoke can dissipate. I was really impressed with the pipeline we had by the end of it all. It was very elegantly set up, and Flash made it work really well because it was literally an animator would just go click on smoke, Control C, go into their scene, Control V, move it around, recolor it, resize it, and it was it allowed for a lot of effects to happen in this show. So let's look at the libraries here right now. I did an electricity library. You can see them all here, and then we referred to them by number. Did a fire library. We didn't have a lot of fire in the show. Splashes, a lot of liquid splashes in the library. In the entire show was asking for a lot. Wispy smoke was a fair amount. Pies, which is reusing a lot of the liquid effects. Blurs, this was all scene specific and motivated by that. Wipes, this was to get from one shot to another. Transitions, and of course the smoke library. This is the one where I spent the most time and put the most effort into and was reused the most. Some of these smoke assets, you can see the entire scope of it all here. Some of these smoke assets were reused probably 20, 30 times throughout the entire season. You can see here, back to the scenes, that we've got these smoke assets as the characters in the foreground are running. There's some smoke in front, there's some smoke behind. That was a cool thing too. You can just copy a layer, put the smoke in front, copy a layer behind, shift it around as needed. And another thing is it was worked out early on that if I drew these assets without outlines, then they could be combined more easily. And you could put a layer on top of a layer on top of a layer, and it wouldn't look like it was all separate assets. So here we've got the chalk brush cleaning robot going boom. And so here the animator, the character animator, has the choice of whether to use a straight ahead asset animation or for a cycle. In this case, it was just straight ahead. This was one of the big smoke reuses that I created that probably took a day and a half, 2 days to animate that one, and it was reused quite a bit. And you can see different layering there. This was probably the one that was reused the most, this chandelier falling down smoke. So there's some smoke behind, some smoke in front, and you can see the smoke is going out in all directions. I've drawn tones on the smoke there as well. It's coming up and out. This probably took, by the end of it all, probably took me a full 3 days to animate it. And just getting every single piece flipping between, and taking it's a very 2D aesthetic. Whether it's on paper or whether it's on a computer, it's all the same principles. So here you can see this wispy smoke. Look at that shape at the top there. This is multiple smoke assets that the character animator used. And so I did one cycle, and you can see there's that same shape again. And if you look on the screen left side of it there, I drew it a little bit wonky, but you can see that it's exactly the same shape and the same part of the cycle. I'm guessing this is probably a 16 drawing cycle. You can go break it down, and there it is again. You can see at 12:02, 13:10, 14:18. It's the exact same piece of smoke up there, and it's just cycling. And so a lot of times the challenge too is to get it into the cycle and out of the cycle. And most of the time that was something I worked on. Sometimes the character animators would be having to do that. Here again is the chandelier smoke. Exactly the same thing. We've flipped it 90 degrees now, vertical, and scaled it down. We've got some in front, some behind, adding depth to the scene. Just again, this pipeline was so efficient. It was, and so a lot of times I would be making effects specifically for a specific action. That's how it started out, because, okay, well, I got to do some effects, let's make it for specific actions. And then as the season went on, it was adding them for specific scenes and maybe changing some to be more reusable throughout different situations, depending on what the show required. So here the smoke is animating up. You can see that shape there that I've drawn is going to be animating up, up, up. Now the smoke is animating on 2s. The camera is panning on 1s. The smoke is animating on 2s. And you can see the puffy 20 over there. We often refer to these by numbers. Oh yeah, put puffy smoke 20 in that scene. So you can see the shape at the bottom becomes the shape in the middle, becomes the shape at the top. 8 drawings. That's all that is. It's just it's a full cycle, and you get so much mileage out of it. This one is probably used 8 or 10 times. In this shot here, there was a lot of smoke assets. There was probably 8 different ones, 8 or 10 different ones even. And the smoke is moving on 1s. In this case, it was taking out those slower frames on 2s, making it seem like it was a much faster effect, even despite the scale. Generally, the scale, if something's big, you want it to be moving slower. And here we got that wipe revealing a new scene. Here's the new cycle. A lot of times characters would be coming into the scene. This show was just so effects friendly. It was asking for a lot of effects. So even when a character ran in a scene, they were like, yeah, throw some skid dust in there, absolutely. And so it was a matter of coming up with those assets and making it so that it had some variation so that it wouldn't get repetitive. Here's the same wipe, can be reused. As soon as you got one frame that's covering up the screen, you can cut to the next shot. Wipes are very versatile that way. Here's some wispy smoke cycles. I think you can see here I've got at least 4 different ones. I think one of them might be reused and shifted over there and maybe squashed down. Again, here comes Pet skidding in. Boom, there goes the dust off to the left. And one of the things about the show that just made it so appealing, like on this shot especially, say, we've got this bus exhaust coming through here, and Edgar and Ellen are just standing there. There's no motion on them. But the dust coming through and the layering in front and behind just allows the scene to stay alive. It gives it that sense of believability. And now, just at the end, as the smoke's dissipating, now Edgar can move. Here again, chandelier smoke in front and behind of this pot. It's much smaller scale here, but still works. You know, ideally it would have had less complexity to it, but functionally it worked quite well. And here, this the one frame zip out. This was used quite a bit too. Boom, there goes Edgar, there goes Pet. And you can see this exact same cycle here. Here's a frame from Edgar, and here's the frame from Pet from a second earlier, or the frame from Edgar a second earlier. Exactly the same cycle. Sorry, asset. It's differentiating just between a cycle, something repeating, and in this case, the animation assets just go straight through beginning to end. I had a ton of fun on this show. Learned a bunch of effects from Keith Ingham and working with my buddy Larry Hall, and yeah, I have good memories of this, even though it was it's already 15 years ago. It's amazing. Thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you next time.